Episode 128.
Then how come you look younger now than before?
I practice the unique pure maiden reincarnation art. It's a marvelous technique that can preserve one's youthful appearance. But every few decades, the art cycles through a reincarnation. When the magic power reincarnates, the practitioner naturally reverts to their childhood form. But after what happened between us, the technique was temporarily damaged a bit, so I grew a little older.
Are you going to be all right?
It's fine. My cultivation technique has reached its peak. Even though I'm no longer a virgin, I've only lost about 5 or 6 years worth of magic power. It's nothing to me.
Han Li fell silent at that, knowing she still harbored quite a bit of resentment over losing her virginity to him. Well, he could only face her in speechless silence. The young woman truly felt she had been wronged. She had just stolen another glance at him, confirming once more that this yellow Maple Valley disciple was utterly ordinary in both looks and talent, with nothing remarkable about him whatsoever. And she, of all people, had actually become one with such a man in the flesh. How could her proud and lofty heart not be utterly consumed by bitterness? But the thought of killing him to vent her hatred, she found she couldn't bring herself to do it. This left her feeling both furious and resentful toward Han Li.
What time is it now? I haven't missed the 5-day return deadline, have I?
The woman, who had been unsettled, was startled by this, but she quickly regained her composure.
It won't be that long. The ink flood dragon's aphrodisiac gas contains very little sedative. We'll be unconscious for 5 or 6 hours at most. But if we're going to get out, we need to start preparing right away. This place isn't exactly easy to leave. But before that, I'll be taking this golden treasure chest. You don't have any objections, do you?
Han Li could only offer a bitter smile. Although he couldn't sense the depth of her magic power, he was certain it was above the Foundation establishment stage. How could he possibly dare to fight her for the treasure? Seeing Han Li remain silent, the woman gave a cold snort. She flew toward the white jade pavilion, smoothly retrieved the golden box into her storage pouch, and then flew back to his side.
Those spirit herbs.
I have no need for them. If you want them, just take them all.
Han Li was overjoyed to hear this. He'd been worried that after leaving the Forbidden Zone, he wouldn't have enough spirit herbs to hand over to his sect, which might arouse suspicion. So he didn't hesitate, immediately dashing over. In the blink of an eye, he had gathered up several dozen spirit herbs. The woman stood in place, watching Han Li's actions with a cold eye, not uttering a word. Only after Han Li returned with the herbs did he speak, his tone grave and deliberate.
To break the restriction and leave this place, we must work together. Neither of us can escape alive alone.
Back in the stone hall on the surface, a thunderous rumbling echoed without end. The disciples of the Concealing Moon sect were still laboriously hammering away at a stone pit several jang deep with their magic tools. Yet, no matter what tool they struck the pit with, it only managed to chip off a piece of rock about an inch in size. With each blow, their spirits sank lower and lower. Hours later, all the disciples, male and female, sat on the ground in a daze, staring silently at the massive pit. A deathly stillness hung over them. They had long since given up any hope of rescuing their ancestor. Now, everyone was contemplating the dire consequences of losing him and starting to look for a way out for themselves. Just then, a deafening boom echoed from outside the stone hall. The entire structure shuddered violently, as if the very earth and mountains were being torn asunder. The disciples froze for a moment, stunned.
What's going on?
The disciples exchanged glances. 2 of the male disciples immediately strode out of the stone hall to investigate.
Ancestor.
Grandmaster.
Moments later, the 2 disciples' ecstatic shouts echoed from outside the hall. Their voices were so loud that even the disciples still lingering in the stone hall's main chamber heard them clearly, causing them to exchange startled glances before immediately stampeding out in a rush. About 30 feet from the temple entrance, a pit over 10 feet wide had appeared. Standing near its edge was a stunning woman in flowing white robes. Her features were unmistakably those of the young ancestor, now matured. At this moment, the ancestor of the concealing moon sect was staring coldly into the distance, her expression completely indifferent, paying no heed whatsoever to the two male disciples standing behind her. This plunged the disciples from their ecstatic high into a sobering, ice-cold reality.
Could it be the ancestor intends to hold us accountable for triggering the restriction?
At that thought, all the disciples couldn't help but glance at the female disciple from the Eye-Moon twin beauties. Realizing this, the woman's face instantly turned deathly pale, her heart filled with dread. The woman in white gazed out for a full quarter of an hour before finally turning back to look at the disciples behind her.
Move out.
Han Li's body was light and agile as he sped down the mountain. Now his entire body was surging with magic power, having reached the 13th layer. To escape the underground swamp, the woman used a secret technique, temporarily transferring a portion of her restricted magic power to Han Li. This propelled Han Li's strength from the 11th layer all the way to the peak of the Qi condensation stage. Then, one using the vermilion bird ring and the other the golden light brick talisman treasure, they actually managed to brute force a tunnel straight up to the surface. Throughout this process, whenever Han Li's magic power ran dry, the woman would silently transfer her own to him. When the two finally emerged from underground, Han Li's golden light brick talisman amulet was spent, reduced to scrap paper, and the young woman had lost 20 to 30 years of her cultivation base. It was, without a doubt, a heavy price to pay.
Honestly, that woman's plain maiden reincarnation art is truly bizarre. During the reincarnation cycle, she can transfer the restriction's magic power to a man, but she can't use it herself or transfer it to another woman, and the power transferred is still limited by the man's own cultivation realm. Since I'm only at the Qi condensation stage, the magic power she could transfer was capped at the 13th layer of the foundational technique. It could never push me into foundation establishment.
Because the final barrier on the surface was breached just as Han Li was receiving the woman's magic power, he was able to maintain this temporary 13th layer power for a while longer, letting him savor this unique sensation.
Nangong 1.
Han Li repeated the name silently to himself. It was the one she had given him when he'd asked, just before they parted. Still, Han Li felt a pang of melancholy, seeing how reluctant she had been to tell him. He was acutely aware of the vast gulf between them, in lifespan and in status within the cultivation world, so he could only accept her cold indifference at their parting with a bitter taste in his mouth.
I know my limits. Reaching foundation establishment is within my grasp, but core formation, that's still a distant dream I can only look up to.
Just as Han Li was thinking this, his expression darkened, his figure vanished with a whoosh, only to reappear in the same spot a moment later, a storage pouch now in his hand. At that moment, the headless corpse of a spirit beast mountain disciple tumbled down from a nearby tree. Han Li gave the contents of the storage pouch a cursory glance, shook his head slightly, and leapt away. On the afternoon of the 5th day since entering the Forbidden Zone, the waiting members of the various sects finally made their move. The 7 core formation cultivators once again strained to open the entrance. They then stared into the pitch-black passageway, waiting with composed expressions for the first person to emerge. This time, breaking the barrier was clearly much easier than 5 days ago. The moment the passage appeared, the 7 withdrew their magic treasures, and the opening remained stable, leading straight into the Forbidden Zone. The concealing moon sect's Elder Cheung had appeared on a nearby boulder at some point, watching the crowd with a grin. It seems he's taking this wager very seriously indeed. Finally, half an hour after the passage opened, a middle-aged Taoist priest walked out with a composed expression. His robes were covered in dust, with several sizable tears and bloodstains, clear signs of a hard-fought battle.
Master Uncle.
The middle-aged Taoist bowed to Fuyunzi, then quietly sat down cross-legged to one side. Floating Cloud Taoist glanced at the middle-aged Taoist and gave a slight nod. Patriarch Li's expression was placid, showing no emotion, but Old Man Chung just rolled his eyes. Next, the effeminate man from the Saber Transformation sect, the ugly man Zhong Hu from the Spirit Beast Mountain, the blue-robed youth from the Heavenly Void sect, and the Chen siblings from Yellow Maple Valley, among other disciples, emerged from the passageway one after another, each bearing wounds to a greater or lesser degree. Each one of them, looking utterly exhausted, made their way to their respective sect elders and settled down to meditate. After the time it takes to eat a meal, another large group of disciples emerged, walking together. By now, over 20 disciples from the 7 sects had emerged, yet not a single member of the Concealing Moon sect had appeared. This drew looks of surprise from the other 6 factions. Yet, Elder Cheung, Fairy Nicheng, and the other members of the Concealing Moon sect showed not the slightest change in expression, appearing completely confident. Another half-hour passed. Only 2 disciples from other sects emerged from the passage. There was still no sign of anyone from the Concealing Moon sect, and now only 1 hour remained before the passage closed. Only then did Old Man Chung and Fairy Nicheng exchange a glance, a faint trace of unease finally showing on their faces. At that moment, a figure flickered at the tunnel entrance, and a young man from Yellow Maple Valley stepped out. This was Han Li, who had arrived after cutting down several opponents in a lightning-fast series of moves. Han Li walked slowly to his sect's designated spot and, like the others, sat down in the order of his arrival. By sheer coincidence, the Chen siblings were seated right next to him. Yellow Maple Valley's disciples who made it out of the Forbidden Land alive actually ended up being one of the 6 sects with the higher survival rates. Besides the Chen siblings, there was an old man and a young man, plus Han Li, making a total of 5. Compared to the 3 or 4 from other sects, or even the mere 2 from the Giant Sword sect, that was a significant lead. This brought a smile to Patriarch Li's face, his expression brightening with pleasure.